right, we are back with a very special edition of Osceola Seminole Sidelines. And in case you don't know this is take two for us. We just had a little technical snafu, but anyway, I was really hoping that song could be in the air tonight. That would seem to be appropriate for this weekend. But yes, the Osceola is back with our FSU Miami preview. My name is Pat Burnham. I am joined by Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, Osceola senior writer Kurt Weiler, Osceola football analyst and former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva, and Osceola recruiting writer and analyst Nick Carlisle. And Nick, we'll start with you. You've actually had the busiest morning of the four of us. Well, Mark's been driving a while, so he's had a busy morning too. But anyway, so the recruiting news has been the buzz of the day. FSU received the commitment of four-star cornerback prospect Jamari Howard from Miami Norland High School. Florida State is now up to 5 DBs committed to the 2024 class. And obviously you were down at the Moore Center. A little bit, first of all, your thoughts on Jamari Howard's commitment and what was kind of the buzz around campus. I know they've got recruits coming in, filtering in and out through the day, and a huge visitors list for this weekend. If you have not seen that visitors list, please go to theosceola.com and check it out. It's Stars come out in the afternoon apparently because they are hosting a number of the top-rated prospects in the country.
Yeah, it's going to be a gigantic recruiting weekend for Florida State. You got guys like Chris Ewell Jr., who actually already visited Florida State a couple of weeks ago. He's currently committed to Michigan, four-star cornerback for the 25 class. That's one of the names that we were expecting to show up this morning. I personally did not see him. He could have arrived a little bit before I got there, could have arrived a little bit after I got there. But as for Jamari Howard, this is a recruit or a commitment, rather, that we figured was coming for a while. It's been future cast that he was going to be committing to Florida State for about a month and a half now. So not too much of a surprise in the circle of those that know, but anytime you can pluck a recruit from the middle of Miami, especially one that's this talented, he fits the mold perfectly of what Randy Shannon is looking for in a defensive back at 6'2", very, very lengthy prospect. So the buzz around campus was good this morning. I saw Adam Fuller briefly, and he had a smile on his face, and it looked like he had a extra pep in his step. So I think everybody's feeling quite good coming into what's going to be a huge recruiting weekend.
Yeah, and we will have a ton of recruiting news throughout the weekend. We will be out there tomorrow as the players are arriving for unofficial visits. We will also post up at the Moore Center almost all day on Sunday in case there's kids leaving late in the weekend, and we will try to grab some comments from those kids. But yeah, Jamari Howard's an impressive-looking kid, 6'2", almost 6'3", 175. We got to give a shout out to our man Charles Fishbein, our also recruiting analyst. Charles called this, or when I say Charles, it just does not sound right. Fish called this over 6 weeks ago. He said that Florida State was going to land Jamari Howard, and they did. And of course, Fish, when it comes to recruiting in the state of Florida, Fish is his man with the ear to the ground, and particularly right there in his backyard. So, but yeah, you watch his film, and you can see that he could end up at corner, safety, and if he were to hit it, I didn't see him in person to see what kind of shoulders he has, but he's a very physical kid, and as we know, everyone's looking for a hybrid safety type linebacker. So at 6'3", 175, certainly got some room to put on his size to put on that frame, and we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, listen, Mike Norvell starts out with a win in Miami. Now he needs to get a win versus Miami, and that's really what we're here to talk about. We'll catch up on the recruiting later. But Mark, you have driven 12 hours from Nashville, Tennessee to watch this game. You've played in this rivalry. Just tell us a little bit about how excited you are about this particular game and about being in the stadium for it.
Yeah, so I mean, some of my greatest memories being affiliated with this program, coaching and playing, revolve around this ball game. And some of the most electric times I've ever been in Doak Campbell have been during this ball game. So I expect nothing less. I expect it to be at full Doak war chant level 11, right? So turn it up to 11. It's going to be awesome. So I'm excited about it. You know, these games are always played at a high level. There's always big momentum shifts. You know, there's a lot of athletes on the field, and you know, it's going to be an exciting game. I'm excited to be here and see it live and just take it all in and bring the Noles victory.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game. And listen, one of the things that stands out about this game to me is you don't really think about it when you start getting into the minutia of a particular one game. But it's been a long time, Jerry, since this game has been nationally relevant. This game has implications on the national championship picture. It's been about 10 or so years since this game has had that kind of impact on what's going on in the totality of college football. You've seen a lot of these games. How does your feeling going into this game match years prior, recently?
Yeah. Well, it's, as you said, Pat, it's been 10 years. We used to take it for granted that this was a national championship, really a national championship game. I mean, Mark, you correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that Coach Bowden's mantra? Win the ACC, beat Florida, beat Miami, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, you always felt that if you could win the state championship, you probably means you were good enough to win the conference, and winning the state championship back in my era meant you were in play for the national championship.
Yeah. So that it's always been an important game, but it's been a long time since it's had national championship implications.
Well, Kurt, you've been at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. A couple things, I guess, really to get just what's been the vibe around the practice field. I mean, we're around this team every day. You're around this team every Tuesday and Wednesday. Kind of what's been the feeling at practice, the intensity level. And then obviously on Tuesday when we talked to college football playoff night, you guys mentioned that Johnny was fully back at practice. I'm assuming that he's healthy and ready to go. Keon was listed on the depth chart, so I'm assuming he's ready to go. But any other updates?
Yeah, I think, frankly, the vibe at practice this week was pretty focused. I mean, I think coaches and players will often say the right things about, I mean, we try and approach every week, every opponent the same way. And I think they do, but I think inherently, I mean, there's going to be that little bit extra when it comes to weeks like this. And I think we've seen a really good week of practice. I thought, frankly, I mean, we talked about Johnny on Tuesday. I thought the offense had maybe its best start to a practice of maybe one of them of the entire season Tuesday. I thought they hit a few explosives, one of them to Johnny, who, yeah, I mean, Johnny seems it'll be interesting both with Johnny and Keon. I'm not sure either's a sure thing, but I mean, both are going to do everything in their power, surely, to be out there for that game. And that's the big question. I don't read into Keon playing because he's on the depth chart, because Keon was on the depth chart last week. Johnny's been on the depth chart the last 2 weeks. That is not how much you can't read the depth chart and expect to, at least a Mike Norvell depth chart, and expect to learn much. They kind of stay the same. I think his depth chart's probably stayed the same the last month and a half, except I think Winston Wright got dropped off it when he left the program. But no, I mean, I think it's been a good week of practice, and I think you feel good about having at least one of them back, and it's going to take, I mean, Keon Coleman's going to do everything in his power, and we'll see, but he is going to try everything he can to be out there.
Kurt, I'd like to correct you. I don't think it's Mike Norvell's guest depth chart. I think they have a guest picker, kind of like game day. They had a guest picker fill out the depth chart every week.
Well, they keep it the same a lot. They're all picking the same thing.
Yeah, listen, it happened. I think it happened last year when Fabian missed that 5 or 6 games in a row where he was listed. Listen, I think it's silly. You're going to play who's going to play. But anyway, that's coaches. So what are you going to do? But, yeah, listen, we know both of them are at practice. We'll find out about how exactly full speed they are, I guess, tomorrow afternoon around 3:30. But, yeah, they really should probably be more accurate with those things. That way we're not saying that somebody's starting and they're not. So listen, it's going to be fun no matter who's playing. It's going to be a really good game. All right, so guys, I guess I'll start with this question to each of you. What is the one thing that stands out to you as you've either watched film or researched Miami about the Hurricanes through their first 9 games of the season? And then we'll do a little bit of more FSU's offense versus Miami's defense, and FSU's defense versus Miami offense. But if there's one thing that stands out to you about this particular Miami team, good or bad, what is it? And Kurt, I'll start with you.
I mean, I think when you look at the good side of it, you have to look at that defensive line. I mean, they're top 15 nationally in sacks and tackles for loss. That defense as a whole isn't great. The defense is definitely gettable. I'm not sure they're going to be able to kind of stifle Florida State's offense, but Ruben Bain is a dude. I mean, that's one. the dude's nickname is Hurricane. That was always going to be a hard recruiting battle for Florida State to win, but it's a tough one to be runner-up in because if you added him into the rotation they have this year, that would be quite an addition to this Florida State defense. And they have a few other guys, Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle. I mean, they're gonna bring pressure and probably, I mean, they're gonna test what we think has been an FSU offensive line that has been better pass blocking than run blocking this season.
Mark?
Well, I mean, I look in big picture here. This is the first team since Clemson that I think can match us athletically, right? Both on the lines of scrimmage and in skill positions. They got guys that can run, guys that can hit. They got receivers that can run. They have, since Clemson, this is the first team that, the games in between Clemson and here, you always kind of said, okay, if we just do what we do, we got a better roster. We're going to, we'll take care of business. This is a team that's dangerous. I mean, they're kneeled down away from only being 2 losses, right? They got handled against North Carolina, and really they underperformed against NC State, but they have enough dudes to, obviously give us a more than a great game. They could beat us if we're not on our game. Now, that's the thing that sticks out to me. Digging further into it, I don't think they have the depth that we have. And this is the 9th game of the year, and they're probably beat up pretty good too. So, when I look at it, the other thing you kind of notice, especially in the later games, is they look to run out of gas a little bit, right? When they lose the leads or when they have to get something done late in the game, they've kind of fallen short. Save the Clemson game. That was a really bizarre game to me too. But all that being said, that to me is what sticks out, is that athletically they can hang with us.
Yep. All right, Jerry?
Well, let me play along Mark's line there second. I want to the first thing I would have said is what Kurt said, but Kurt's already said it. Their defensive front is very good. And then following up on Mark's talk, I was surprised when I went in there and looked at, where their players are ranked when they came out of high school. And they'll start 22 4- and 5-star players within their 2 deep in the top 45 players that they'll play against Florida State. 22 of them are 4- or 5-star players. Conversely, Florida State's top 45 counts 11 4- and 5-star players. So when you start looking at who has the more talented team, according to the rivals' rankings individually, Miami has twice as many. So they certainly can match us in terms of athleticism and talent. Now, do they play well as a team? Are they as developed as Florida State? Have they been in Cristobal's system as long as they have been in Norvell's? You can ask all those questions. But I think the data supports Mark's position that this is a team that can match us, if not exceed us in terms of talent.
It doesn't include transfers though.
Well, they have 16 transfers and we have 19.
But my point being, Jordan Travis, so many of Florida State's best players aren't the 4- and 5-stars, but they're clearly talented, great players. So that's it only tells half the story is kind of what I'm saying.
Is this the NCAA transfer portal bowl that we're having on Saturday?
It absolutely is. And you've got a lot of transfers in there.
I'm going to tell you what, FSU hit home runs on the portal on the defensive side of the ball, and Miami hit a couple of home runs on the offensive side of the ball with Cohen and Matt Lee. Nick, what stands out to you as you've gotten into your research?
Well, I think this may be seen as the easy answer, but I think the story is Tyler Van Dyke and how this quarterback went from being one of the more impressive freshmen in the ACC to now a couple of years later, we have no idea where his confidence is at. He's thrown 10 interceptions in the last 4 games, and obviously not all of them were his fault. I think 2 of them came on like the last play of the game in a desperate situation. I think another one came in a situation in which Miami was trying to press and tie the football game. But just the entire story of Van Dyke and where he was as a player and to where he is now, coming into a situation where a lot of the Miami crowd are calling for his head, righteously or not. how is he going to come into an atmosphere that's going to be truly hostile in Doak on Saturday? And furthermore, if he doesn't respond well to that, if Florida State defensively can rattle his cage, does Miami go to Jakari Brown? Do they go back to Emory Williams? There's an interesting duality there that I think really could define this game when all is said and done.
Well, there is some duality there because he's still he's still got the 17th best completion percentage in all of college football.
Yeah, and you watch him, and there are times where he makes throws, and you're like, damn, that's a really good quarterback. But it's whatever is going on above the shoulder pads, whether it's coaching, whether it's just confidence, that's going to come into play.
Yeah, listen, I think that obviously he's not playing very well right now. We'll find out whether it was a 4-game thing or whether it's who he is and who this team is. But certainly, I think we got to be careful about overreacting to that. It's hard to believe he's going to keep on throwing 3 interceptions a game. Yeah. And
I think he's hurt.
He's well,
that's the other thing too. But just
sure. But yeah, it's going to be interesting how that plays out. I can't wait to see what they do with that, what they do with their offense. We know they're going to try to run the ball, but and I'll be brief with the overall picture. As I was doing research on the computer, I had multiple Miami games going throughout the day, and the one thing every time I looked out of the corner of my eye was speed. They can run, particularly on defense. They run very well. The other thing that stood out to me on the defensive side of the ball, and I'll mix this and once we get to FSU's offense versus Miami's defense, is they are very, very thin on the defensive line in the secondary. They got some depth at linebacker, but they only play about 5 or 6 kids on the defensive front. They only play about 6 or 7 kids in the backfield, and one of the Brown brothers is hurt. I don't know if he's available. I don't remember if it's Damari or his other brother. But anyway, Damari was a kid that Florida State recruited both those kids last year, but they're young in the secondary as well. So those would be the 2 things that stand out to me in the overall picture of things.
But let me add one more thing. They have a very good running game.
Yes.
I mean, they're physical. They average, I think, 5.16 yards a carry. They're nationally ranked with their running game. So,
they're deep at running back.
Yeah. They emulate Florida State in that way.
Yeah. So you look at this series, I think 32 times since 1979, the team that won the running game won the game. And coming into this game, Miami is higher ranked both in run offense and run defense.
Yeah, so, Miami ranked 40th at 176 per game on the ground, Jerry.
Yeah, and then defensively, they're only giving up like under 100 yards a game, 89, I think.
Yeah, and 2.81 yards per carry. So, all right, so let's go. FSU's offense versus Miami's defense. Guys, I think this is where they hit the break glass deal again with Jordan Travis. I think we're going to see the full Jordan Travis experience. I think he is going to – I think Mike's going to cut him loose. I think this is what they've been waiting for. I think Florida State offensively, particularly with their struggles to run the ball in the dedicated run game, I think they're going to have to take advantage of that extra gap that he creates and force Miami to play the run, and which will hopefully open up some opportunities in play action in the RPO pass game because Jordan, he can cause a lot of not only mental stress because of what he does to your defense, but physical stress because he's such a dynamic player, both running and throwing. So, Mark, I'll start with you. What do you think FSU has to do offensively versus Miami's defense?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about FSU is they have lots of options, right? And so when you look at this stuff, you kind of say, okay, what's the path for success, especially with this matchup of FSU's offense versus Miami's defense? And I sat there and thought about it. I'm like, okay, we just talked about Miami's defensive depth. They're struggling right now. They've lost 2 of their defensive ends. They're 2 of their corners look like they're hurt. Look, this is going to be an emotional game. There's a lot at stake, right? And I wrote this in my preview. This is proof time for Mario Cristobal, right? Proof of concept, so he can keep recruiting, so he can keep building this program. They're in year 2. Remember where we were in year 2, right? Trying to do the same kind of thing. we are in contention for college football playoff spot. And so there's a lot at stake here. It's going to be emotional. And with a lot of emotion comes a lot of adrenaline. And with a lot of adrenaline, you're going to see a lot of guys flying around early. And so, but that wears off over time, over a couple of series, over time of the game as things start happening. And then, with all that adrenaline, then fatigue starts to set in once all that adrenaline drains out, right? We've all kind of experienced that. If you ever competed in athletics, you know what I'm talking about. So for me, yeah, I agree with you, Pat. I think Jordan Travis needs to run, but I don't know that he needs to run early in the game, because if I'm Miami and they blitz better than half the time, they're going to come after him, especially when we're throwing the ball. So I say protect him early, right? Yep. Let him burn off a lot of this adrenaline. Let's run the ball. Let's throw a lot of quick screens, max protect with tight ends and backs, and take shots down the field when they blitz. See if we can hit a shot or two, right? Yep. And you know what? If he happens to organically scramble and make some big plays, but protect himself. And then, like I said before, when we get deeper into the game, and that wear and tear, because look, this is the 9th game of the year. You've got a freshman defensive end that's played a lot of snaps and is not getting subbed a lot. You've got defensive linemen who are not getting subbed a lot. You've got a secondary that's thin, right? As the game wears on, those guys are getting tired. That's when you unleash Jordan Travis. That's when you start running him. When guys are just a step off and they can't catch him, that's when those big plays are going to happen. So when I see a path for this offense to be successful, I think that's the way. Because look, here's the other thing too. I think if you're looking at the trends, again, big picture trends, just for the teams in general, but definitely for these two parts of the teams, our offense is getting better as the year is going on. I don't think Miami's defense is getting better. I think they're getting worse. And I think that's going to hold true later in the game too. So I think be patient early, wear them down. And then, at second half, maybe even at the end of the first half, let Jordan start being Jordan.
Yeah, listen, let me ask you this question. I'm sure there's a lot of difference schematically and how they attack offenses, but the philosophies are a lot the same. That what they saw last week against Pitt, where they're going to bring linebackers on run blitz and pass blitz. Is that an advantage for Florida State to have played someone so recently that has some, maybe not talent and speed wise, but certainly has some philosophical similarities?
Well, I don't know, because it's an advantage for Miami too, because they've also seen how we do against that and how we react to that and what we go to on that too. So it kind of goes, any advantage that we may have gained playing that style is kind of negated by the fact that Miami's got film on it, right?
Yep.
So bottom line is we're in the 9th game of the year or 10th game of the year, and teams are who they are. You don't have to go back. Early in the year, you're always wondering, okay, teams come out and they do things that we don't see on film. You get a Castellanos coming out and they're doing stuff you don't recognize and whatnot. We are who we are. They are who they are. There's not going to be much difference. I think everybody knows what everybody's going to do, and so now it just becomes, okay, where do we match up? Can we manipulate those matchups? Can we get in those matchups, and can we execute? And then hold on to the ball, the usual stuff, right? Do things good teams do. And that's really the big difference, right? We do things good teams do. We don't turn the ball over, right? We convert in the red zone, and we control the game, especially late. Miami's doing things bad teams do, right? They give up big plays. They turn the ball over.
Their coaches get penalties.
Coaches get penalties, right? They don't take a knee. I mean, they do things. So, but you got to kind of throw that all out the window here. Yeah. You got to expect you're going to get their very best, and so that's kind of the way I see it. It's like I said, it could be really tight early, but I expect late in the game there's going to be a lot of opportunities for FSU's offense.
Kurt, what stands out to you about FSU's offense versus Miami's defense, or what stands out to you about Miami's defense versus FSU's offense?
No, we've talked about how aggressive we think that Miami is going to be defensively. I think that's something Florida State could use to its advantage with the screen game. I think the screen game, there was a slow start to the year with the effectiveness of the screen game. It kind of wasn't where it was last year. The last few weeks, it's really gotten going. And I think, against a young, in some spots, inexperienced defensive line, and linebackers too, if they're using them aggressively, that's something you can use to your benefit to have numbers behind and have those maybe explosive screenplays. I also think, I mean, the thing with Miami's defense, we've talked about, I think, especially the front seven, the run defense, the sack numbers, the tackle for loss numbers. The problem is they've also allowed 19 passes of 30 or more yards. Only Wake Forest among ACC teams has allowed more. And mind you, that's against, I mean, I can run down their schedule. Miami, Ohio, Texas A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Temple, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Clemson, Virginia, and North Carolina State. It's not a murderer's row of quarterbacks. I mean, Jordan Travis is probably with Drake May and the best quarterbacks and the best passing attacks they'll have played this season. So as long as, I mean, if you get at least one of Johnny or Keon back, that feels like an area that you'll be able to exploit.
Yeah, that you're right. That plus 20 and plus 30 pass plays, particularly plus 30 is alarming. And like we said when we started seeing Florida State blitz about the third or fourth week into the season. I can't remember what game it was when he started bringing it. But one of the things we said the following week was, "You live by the blitz, you die by the blitz." And listen, again, Miami's only lost 3 games, but you're right. And Keon and Johnny are going to be if both of them play and both of them are totally healthy, those guys can take off the top of either side of the field and create some really big advantages.
I agree with that, but protect Jordan, especially early while they got a lot of gas, right?
Yeah.
So max protect, chip the defensive ends, play action, get them out of the pocket, do some things. If we're going straight drop back, especially early in the game, 5-on-5 or 6-on-5, then to me that's taking an unnecessary risk early in the game for me.
Yeah, keep Biscuit at the line of scrimmage. Let him block a couple times and let Trey
at least chip.
Yeah,
at least chip, right?
Jerry, what about you? FSU's offense against Miami's defense. What stands out?
I think the diversification of Florida State's offense. I don't think Miami's faced a team that can do both. Run and pass.
Agree.
The balance that Florida State has out of the same personnel group, I think, will give Miami trouble.
Nick, what do you think? FSU's offense versus defense?
I don't know, Pat, that there's a whole lot more than I can add. I mean, I think everybody made really great points. I especially agree with Mark, what he said about the depth along the defensive line for Miami and missing the 2 cornerbacks. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the word was at the beginning of the week that Cristobal said that one of them was fine and it was looking good for the other one, or that for the other cornerback that was out. So chances are they will play. But I think it's really interesting in the trenches between Miami's defensive line, and we all know how good Ruben Bain Jr. is. We all know how good that defensive line is. But the ability to have an offensive line and an Alex Atkins coached unit that has been cycling 7 players pretty much all year, there's a certain degree of freshness along that line. And they're going to be tested, especially in the run game. That is going to need to be established at least a little bit. So to Mark's point, you can protect Jordan a little bit and then have him run a little bit more in the second half. So I think, but it really all starts in the trenches. I know that's a very cliche thing to say about football, but you win it in the trenches, and that's going to be a key area.
Well,
when I looked at the Clemson game in our offensive line, and we didn't run the ball real good against Clemson. Very comparable defense, right?
Yeah.
Real athletic front, linebackers that can run, but that's not Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Barry Carter, right? So they're not them. And honestly, we didn't block that bad in the running game in the Clemson game. I'll go back and look at it with anybody who wants to look at it with me. We had some stuff. I think there was there was a confluence of things that just didn't go right in the running game. I think when FSU's offensive line wants to, not that they don't want to, but when they can block this front. I mean, I think everything's going to be a total mismatch. Now, I do think that some guys are going to have to play a lot better than they have in recent weeks. There's no doubt in my mind about that, especially against Leonard Taylor, right? That guy, him against our guards worries me a little bit. But if those guys perform, I think we may be able to run the ball a little bit on them, and that's all we need to do is run it a little bit. But and they pass protect a lot better than they run block too.
No, absolutely.
You talked about that Clemson game. I mean, that was definitely, I think, Jeremiah Byers' low point going against Xavier Thomas. Ate his lunch a few times in that game. I'm interested to see if he's where it looks like he's made progress. How much of that is the teams they played? How much of that is he feels more comfortable or more confident or what of that? So we'll see.
Right. And we don't have to isolate him either.
Yep, for sure.
So, I think one of the reasons they struggled early in the season and really to continue to struggle is we saw them going away from the gap schemes, the pin and pulls, the man scheme runs, and they went into zone. And I think when you've got a defensive front that plays like Miami's and Clemson's, you've got to set up angles for your offensive linemen. And I think you can be more successful with the gap schemes than you are the zone schemes. Mark, am I wrong about that?
Yeah. I think the thing about the zone is it facilitates double teams, right? And and you're always going to get a 2-on-1 situation somewhere along the line, and that's the thing about it. If you're coaching it right, if you do it right, you facilitate a lot of double teams.
Well, you can go watch that Pitt tape, and they run the zone, and a number of times they don't get up to the second level because they don't block it well. I mean,
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. So you're going to block a guy down, let a linebacker run through?
Well, I just and my experience was I'd rather have an angle on a guy that was better than I was than I would have to block him straight on. And I guess that's my point.
Well, I think the things with Pitt, and I documented this in the second watch thread, our eyes were terrible, right? So we're on a double team and we're not even looking at the second level. I mean, it's a correctable thing, is my point, but I'm a zone guy. That's me, right? I mean, I'm a zone guy, and that's just what I like, and I like it for a lot of different reasons, and that's one of them is that it does facilitate double teams along the line of scrimmage. If you coach it right and get the eyes right, get the angles right, it's hard to stop.
Well,
regardless of what they do, they can blitz, right? They can twist, they can do.
It's a pretty simple rule.
You
feel the linemen and you see the linebackers.
Yeah, it's simple in that regard. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's move over to the defense.
Hey, Pat, before we move over, something that hasn't been mentioned is Miami's cornerbacks and their nickelback are 5'10" and 6 foot tall. So there may be some advantage there with our bigger receivers.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is you're going to see the 6'5", 215-pound safety. I think he's always going to be over Keon's side of the field.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try to help him out a little bit, but there are some – listen, I don't care.
That's why you hope both Wilson and Keon are playing.
But you're right. No matter who you put against Johnny Wilson, I don't care if you put a 6'5" guy against Johnny Wilson. Nobody's going to have as long arms as catch radius as he does, and I think that I think you're right, Jerry. I think Mike is very good at creating mismatches in those situations, and I think that's something that you're right. We will probably see and did not give enough credence to. Anybody else got any final thoughts on the FSU offense versus Miami defense matchup?
Yeah, look, it all hinges on Jordan Travis. Bottom line.
That makes me feel good because
so protect them.
Yes. Run him.
Because they're coming after him. I promise you, they're coming after him.
Hey, if I think Jordan will have probably the second or third most carries on the team in this game. Is that?
I think so. Yeah. Third, if not second, makes sense. I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Hopefully late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he'll be taking a couple of knees and lose some yardage on those final plays. Maybe we can teach Mario a lesson in game management while he's here.
Well, I think Mike did that last week when he didn't cover the spread and cut the game off there late against Pitt, right?
Tate with his hands on his head was very funny. Did they catch Kate on the broadcast going, "Oh no, we're not going to score"?
Yeah, listen, that did surprise me a little bit because Mike's always in pedal down mode. I mean, he's always doing that. All right.
There's some coaches I think he would do that too. I think if he had a chance to do that against Dabo, maybe he would.
Oh, really?
Maybe, yeah. Good point.
All right, Kurt. I see you got something on Pete Thymal. What is that?
Oh my gosh, we're going to time capsule us a bit. Apparently, the Big Ten's supposed to. We're breaking for a second. Is going to make it where Jim Harbaugh can't coach on the sidelines of games for the rest of the regular season. That's going to be their punishment. from the Big Ten.
So he's going to coach from the stands where he still.
No, he's gonna coach throughout the week and then not be there on game day.
Not at all, huh?
Apparently.
Wow. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen when they. And I didn't get a chance to verify the report. I did see the report, I guess, 2 days ago, where they were talking about there were some Big Ten teams that had shared Michigan signals, and so I didn't know where this was going to go. But anyway, it's again on the Michigan thing. It's one of those things. Where do you draw the line in the sand and cheating? There was an organized. If that's
Leaving
true,
the campus.
What's that?
Look,
Leaving the campus.
Yeah. Wow.
but no, look. The bottom line is they got caught blatantly breaking the rules. If you get caught, you got to pay the piper.
And they're fixing to pay the piper.
Everybody does it. It's not a valid excuse.
And what the NCAA will say, even if there's no proof he knew or was involved, or people come out and say he didn't know, institutional control. It falls under institutional control, where it is his responsibility because it's his program.
And that's what you don't want.
Well, the other thing, the computer thing with the other assistant coach is going to turn out to be more damning once it comes out. My understanding is they were actually they were accessing other schools' computers to draw out playbooks and things.
They were hacking?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
That's what I was told today. We'll see. We'll see. That's when I was on JP Peterson's show today. That's what he alluded to while we were talking about this, because it did come up. I can't remember why Michigan came up, but it seems everybody likes to talk about it. I guess it's good. It's good debate. But anyway, that's what
Let's
he.
get back to the task.
It's like,
that's right. So,
NASCAR.
FSU's defense versus Miami's offense.
Wait, one last thing. It's like NASCAR. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
That's right. That's right. Rubbin's racing, and so is stealing signs. Listen, they ain't even talking code in NASCAR, so people can't steal their signals. You know, Mark, you and I have both been on those headsets before.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Speaking of trying to slow people down, FSU's defense against Miami's offense, I think, is where we're at now, and this is going to be intriguing. This is going to be strength against strength. Miami wants to run the ball. Florida State's good at stopping the run. Florida State's strength of the defense is its front seven. Obviously, the backfield has played a lot better in the second half of the season than the first half of the season. This will be the best passing offense Florida State's offense has seen since Clemson. It's not even close, and I understand that they've digressed, but there'll be some validation from a Florida State side about the secondary play. But Nick, since we held you for last, what stands out to you about FSU's defense against Miami's offense, or vice versa?
Well, I mean, again, you got to look at Florida State's defensive line against an offensive line that had a couple of transfers come in. Sure, we all know that the back half, the secondary of Florida State's defense is where the question marks are. I think Akeem Dent coming back has definitely helped this secondary kind of get back into a little bit of a groove. And the huge coverage bust last week was a freshman mistake by Conrad Hussey, and I would imagine that you're going to see a lot of Shaheem Brown and Akeem Dent back there at safety.
Well, it was Fintrell Cypress, and he got beat on a cross country.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was a zone play where Conrad tried to cut down the under route and Fentrell got caught in zone, but neither here nor there. I mean, I really think that when it comes to stopping the run, it's going to be really key for Deloach and Tatum Bethune to have a good game, because I imagine that this defensive line, it's going to have a couple of times it's going to get in the backfield, but other than that, it's going to be a lot on the linebackers to make sure they're filling the gaps and making sure that Henry Parrish is not making it to the second level. If Miami can establish a running game, things can get a little bit hectic for Florida State, especially in the first half.
Yeah, Kurt, Miami likes to press the edges of the defense in the run game. They like to get outside the tight end. That's their first and second favorite spot to run the ball, left or right. Then I like running between the left guard and the center. Those are their three favorite holes: the D gap, two D gaps, and the left A gap. Do you think they can press FSU on the edges with the way the front seven is playing right now? And Shaheem Brown's really been great in run support, really all season.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that would go a long way, because it does feel like, Florida State a lot this year has had to pass to run. It feels Miami definitely wants to run to to set up the pass, and that's definitely the more standard way of, and that's how they're going to want to operate. And I think they're going to test how far have Jared Verse and Pat Payton come as run stoppers, as guys who maintain that edge, who do their job. And I think, frankly, I mean, it's a game where I think we've been really impressed with what especially DJ Lundy has done against the run this season, and this is a game where that's going to be tested. I think he's like in the top 10 nationally in PFF run defense grade among linebackers. He's having a really good year on that front, but this is a game that will certainly test that because, I mean, I think Florida State's defense against the last, month and a half, really since the Clemson game, I think they've done a pretty good job of, they give up some plays here and there, but nothing huge in the run and not consistently. They win, or largely they make plays failures far more than they allow them to be successes. But in this run defense, I mean, how deep they go and how much they're going to try and commit to it and probably do it in creative ways will be the story. It's funny. I went on a Miami podcast this week. Seriously, they kind of think they get the impression that the offense is kind of stalled out and the game plan's become predictable. So it's
Florida State's offense?
No, Miami's. They kind of think like since the A&M, they were, I think, really happy with the A&M. And in the week since, they've kind of felt like it's fallen into a rut a bit. And obviously when the quarterback's playing like Tyler Van Dyke has, that probably plays a role. But I think they kind of think that the play calling hasn't helped a ton.
Well, to Jerry's point and what he said about FSU's versatility offensively, Miami lacks it. I think Florida State's got 7 or 8 receivers in double-digit catches. Miami's got 4. And the running back is 8, who's the 5th leading receiver, only has 8 catches. So you got Restrepo's got 60, and you come all the way down to the 4th leading receiver who's got 17. So I think they're right. I think maybe they're not as creative on offense as really they should be in the advent of the RPO. Mark, what are your thoughts on FSU's defense against? And by the way, hats off to DJ Lundy, because I don't think we all thought that he was going to have the kind of season he's having.
No, he's had a great year.
And I think it also speaks to the fact that when you finally have a defensive interior that lives up to what we every year for the last 5 years, we've heard how good Florida State is on the defensive line, particularly inside, and it's never come to fruition into this year. So I think you got to give an assist to Josh Farmer and Braden Fisk in particular for helping free these guys up. But Mark, you go ahead on FSU's defense versus Miami's offense.
Yeah, I think the worst kept secret in America is that Miami wants to run the ball. They want to run it downhill. They want to run it at you. They want to be physical. They want to use the run to set the pass, like Kurt said. And so that's what they're going to do. And what do you say? They average greater than 5 yards a carry.
Yep.
So they're going to try to do that, and that's fine. And they'll probably have a little success. I mean, they're pretty good at it. They're really good on the interior front. You already mentioned Matt Lee and Cohen. You got the freshman right tackle who's a great talent. Playing halfway decent for a true freshman. Playing big league football. But look, here's the deal. If you're going to methodically, to use Hank Stram, matriculate the ball down the field, right? It's come upon us to get them off schedule. That's the path, right? If they want to run on first and second down, that's fine. But if we can get them behind the chains, I would say early downs, run blitz early, +1 in the box early, get them to 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9, and get them to where they're 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, to where you're forcing them to have to throw the ball, and then maybe do some funky zone-y kind of thing, matchup zones, matchup mans, those kind of things, bracket, Restrepo, all that stuff, and see if you can make Van Dyke read the field, get him off his first read, right? Redirect receivers, get him off his first read, and see if you can force him to make a mistake. But you're gonna have to get him behind the chains, and that's where I think, on more drives than not, because look, they're going to try to make it an ugly game, right? They're going to try to keep the ball, keep it away from FSU's offense. And how many times can we get them behind the chains and then get off the field on 3rd down? To me, that's the big key. Now, if they come out and start throwing on 1st down a bunch and throwing it down the field and, start mixing personnel groups, lots of motions and all that kind of stuff, I'll be as surprised as anybody. Nobody would be more surprised except for Adam Fuller, right? So that's what they're going to do. Can we hold up and get them behind the chains on early downs? That's going to be the key.
All right, Jerry, what stands out to you about the FSU offense versus Miami defense? FSU defense versus Miami offense matchup.
I'm curious to see if we can play them in a 4-2 5, which is basically what we've gone to this year. I think we play a light box a lot this year. And with their running game, I'm not sure we can do that. And that's what I want to see. I mean, do we have to play for 4-3? Do we have to walk safety up in there, like Mark said? But I think to stop that run game, we might have to deviate from a 4-2. And I'm curious, get y'all's opinions. What do you think? What do you all think?
I mean, the answer is run blitz early. Or like you said, do a +1. Walk down Shaheem and closer to the box and fill that gap. Because look, here's one thing you don't have to worry about is running quarterback unless they put Ja'Cory Brown in there, right? Yeah. Tyler Van Dyke's a statue, and the more we can force them into 3rd and long where he's straight drop back, the better chance we have. I like our chances with Pat Payton against Malologue or whatever his name is, the freshman tackle. Yeah.
So go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, and so to your point, Jerry, I think maybe early on, ball on the minus side, maybe we do play 4-2. Don't let them take shots, and I think that's smart. And that's kind of Adam Fuller's MO. Right. But as that field starts constricting and we start getting closer to the red zone, that's when he starts taking more chances, starts getting more +1s in the box, starts doing some stunning. And I think our red zone defense is pretty daggum good. I mean, I go back to LSU
really
in that first drive. Yeah, really good. Right. And so I'm not going to panic if they're on the -20 and they start ripping off a couple of runs. I'm not going to get exasperated. Just be patient. They got to score. And so once they get across the 50, then things start to change a little bit. And then, our red zone defense is pretty good, and we start playing more man coverage, and start doing those things. It's if things start to go against type is when I'll start to worry. If they do get down there and they're, we're not being successful and they're able to out physical us, in the red zone, that's when I'll start getting a little bit worried. But
yeah, early in the season, my favorite situation was a short yardage situation for the defense because the opponent offenses didn't have any success early on.
Right.
Really, they haven't had any in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great matchup with Josh Farmer, Braden Fisk, Fabian Lovett. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching that matchup on the interior line. My eyes are going to definitely be there. So if you guys are going to ask me about how the receivers match up against the corners, don't ask me that because I'm not watching that. Okay.
So looking at Miami's run offense numbers, I do think it's important to paint the picture of how they got to 5.16 yards per carry. It's barely front loaded. I mean, the last 5 games, they've averaged over 5 yards per carry once. It was actually against Clemson. They ran for 200 against Clemson, but they ran for 3.5 against Georgia Tech, 3.37 against North Carolina, 3.7 against North Carolina State, and 4.3 against Virginia. So, I mean, those are not the best numbers by any means. It's the talent is there, but it does feel like, and it makes sense in a way that as Tyler Van Dyke,
you got to throw in. So they don't do a lot of 40-yard runs, right? They don't do a lot of long runs, and so but they do a lot of 8-yard runs, a lot of 10-yard runs, a lot of, and then you take the sack numbers.
Yes,
and throw that into it.
That is a part of it for sure.
Yeah, and so because, like I said, Van Dyke's a statue. He sacks himself, right?
So, and it makes sense too that as he struggled more, the run defense has. Like early in the year, if he's having more success, that no doubt, obviously, it pairs that the running game is going to have more success. They're going to have more space to work with. I think a big thing too. I mean, beyond getting them in predictable passing downs, if you can get ahead and make Miami play from behind, where as the game goes on, the run game can't be as much of it, and they have to go pass heavy, then that obviously plays to your strengths as well.
No question.
Yeah, and listen, I think that's a fair point, but you got to be willing to put that same flashlight, bright light on the team that we cover, and that's Florida State. And Florida State has not played a quarterback of any ilk for the last 6 weeks. I mean, they shut down everyone they should shut down. So I think both those things. We've always talked. It matters who you play, right?
Yeah. I'll say this though. Early on we were really concerned because we had a lot of coverage busts, and even against this team like against Southern Miss, we had a few coverage busts, right? And against Boston College, we had a few coverage busts. You hadn't seen that in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, And I go back to I was at the Wake Forest game and watched the secondary a lot, and the communication is so much better. guys are in position. And I know they're not burners and they're not great receivers, but there's nobody running free except, it happened last week, one coverage bust with, whatever it was, whether it was Cypress or whether it was Conrad Hussey, who knows? But those are fewer and far between is my point.
Yeah.
And so even though, in the back of our mind, we've seen that play out early in the year, it hasn't happened as often. So I think they're better, right? So to your point, it's going to be interesting to see how much better against a quality quarterback with a very good arm, right, who may not read the field so great, but against receivers that can run. That's going to be interesting.
Hey, Mark, I got a question for you. All right, so when you break down Van Dyke, he is much more efficient and effective throwing towards the numbers than he is towards the middle of the field. I mean, if you look at his passer rating between what I call the second and third levels, behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties, he's really low, like 56.6. What can you do defensively to kind of, schematically to force inside throws? What will Adam do defensively to try to make sure he's got to throw the ball towards the middle of the field where the picture is cloudier and he is struggling?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? So, obviously the thing would be, safeties over the top, over those outside receivers, and now you got to match up with the interior guys, with the linebackers and the nickel backs on those inside receivers, or there's drag routes or whatever it is that they want to, Restrepo, right? So, look, Van Dyke's he's got a live arm now, and make no mistake, several times a game he'll make a throw and you go, man, that's a big time throw. I mean, he's got arm talent. Make no mistake about it. I think it's been said here, the issues are above his head, and he does tend to, look, when he gets to be a real tight situation, he's going to focus on Restrepo. That's no big secret. I mean, that's the thing.
Yep.
So,
80 targets this year. 80 targets, 10 a game.
80?
80.
Wow. Yeah.
He is what, like, that connection is what Florida State fans thought Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman was. And it's not nearly the same case. So of like falling in love with your favorite receiver and throwing to him all the time.
Well, let's hope that happens tomorrow.
As long as he catches 3 and they're in the end zone, that's all I care.
Because I really need to get 1,000 yards from our over-unders from preseason. I'm really waiting on that one.
Is it as simple as TVD struggling to read a zone? That's what Kelvin Harris thought. Kelvin Harris went so far on the podcast this week to dare Adam Fuller to play man because he thinks Tyler Van Dyke can beat man all day, and that's not the problem. He just can't read a zone to save his life.
Well,
no, he does. He does lock in. He does lock in, and he doesn't scan a field.
No,
that's. And I think it's because he gets antsy feet, and being hurt and getting beat up, because he doesn't extend plays. So if he doesn't throw on time, then it's a problem, and that's the thing. You take away his first read, and all of a sudden he starts panicking in the pocket, right? So that's going to be a deal. If we can get home, we can put pressure on him, and not give him a chance to read out a play. That's the deal. He's not going to extend plays, that's for sure.
Yeah, if Florida State can stop the run early and key in on that and make Van Dyke that passer towards well into the second half, this defensive line can pin their ears back and really get after him, and that's when it becomes really interesting.
Yeah, listen, Restrepo and George have 140 targets between the two of them. The third leading receiver, Young, has 47 targets this season. So,
how many catches
if you double less than 10, the starting tight end has less than 10 catches, less than 8 catches.
No wonder he wants a 10th year of eligibility.
There's a reason. There's a reason they're picking up all these passes. It's because they know exactly where the hell the ball's going. So, all right. So the one thing we have not talked about yet is the special teams. And listen, I think I think Florida State's got the advantage. I think it's about even on place kicking. Morgalis is really good. Their place kicker's got a really strong leg, but obviously Fitzy's had a great year for Florida State. I think missed 1 field goal all season long. Other than that, it's been money. And then I think you really got to give Florida State the advantage in the punting game. And I know, Kurt, you talked about sustained drives, and FSU really needs to put Miami in long drive situations. And I think FSU's got the punter to do that.
For sure. I think one of the biggest keys, I think the biggest offensive key to me in this game is don't give Miami short field, because I'm not sure they're going to be able to string together multiple 80-yard drives on you unless they're hitting explosives, which speaks to another issue. I just don't think that's how this offense has looked, is wired with how it's looked the last few weeks. So I think, avoiding turnovers, and yeah, if Mastro can do what he's done, he's had a punt each of the last 2 weeks that are just ridiculous. I guess the one last week was actually a touchback, and he was kind of robbed by just being a split second late on coverage, but he's had some physics defying punts the last 2 weeks. He's been in top form. I know you're upset about him not getting some Ray Guy love.
Yeah, I call him Maestro because he's such a talent. He's almost like an artist.
Maestro Mono.
I'm good with that too. But yeah, and I was happy for Fitzy to get the Groza deal, but I really think that they should have pushed my man Mastromano for maybe they don't like his mullet. I don't know, but certainly they should be getting, this kid should be getting a lot of love. He should be first team all ACC for sure as the punter. I know I know that guy from Duke can really punt the ball too. That was a fun game to watch if you're into special teams. If you're not, it probably did not matter to you. But yes, I think FSU's got the advantage in the kicking game. Jerry, you disappeared for a second. You're back. Special teams, the role it's played in this history of this series. How do you look at the special teams battle? I give Florida State the edge because of Mastromano and Fitzy over Joyce and Borgalis.
Both those Miami guys are good. Now there's going to be some talent out there. So it'll be interesting to see, but
we're talking about the football game.
So much of the kicking game, though, is the other guys surround it. Miami lost a game here on a muff not long ago. Remember that? They had the muff, and the holder didn't get the ball down. And we've seen blocks and punt returns, kick returns have been big in this series over the years. So all of the special teams, punt coverage, kick coverage, it's a big part of the game.
Yep. And listen, it's going to be. I think Florida State's got a chance to have the biggest impact with Mastromano, and as Kurt and I were talking about setting up long fields for Miami, I think that's where Florida State has the edge there. All right, one thing that I wrote about in our staff predictions and keys to victory is it was not a physical X's and O's things or so-and-so versus so-and-so. I've heard Mark talk about the intensity level of this game. I've heard Mario Cristobal talk about the intensity level of this game. Emotions are going to be a part of this, Jerry. You've mentioned it. Both these teams are going to be coming out wired. Both these teams have a lot riding on this game. Obviously, Florida State's college playoff hopes are riding on going through this regular season and getting to the ACC championship game undefeated. I think we pretty much all agree on that. I don't think I've asked you guys that question, but listen, Florida State is a mature team with all the transfer portal guys. You got Braden Fisk, you got Jared Verse, you got Tatum Bethune, you got Kalen DeLoach. Then on offense, you've got Jordan Travis and Trey Benson and Keon Coleman. One of my keys is whoever plays with controlled emotion, controlled intensity is going to give themselves a advantage in this game. You don't want to get caught up in the chirping back and forth between plays that cost you 15-yard penalties. Mark, you've been in this situation. You've run out on that field, and I've been down on that sideline for this rivalry for 10 years, and it is a little bit different. Jerry, you've seen all this over the years. It really does get heated. I mean, we know the Dexter Carter thing from 1980, whatever it was. I mean, that he would have gotten penalized for that. In the days college football, they wouldn't have allowed him to get away with that. Although it was one of the most iconic moments in the history of the program, and one that we all love, and most Florida State fans have pictures of at their house. But Mark, how do you go about as a coaching staff, and even the coaches, keeping their cool? Because coaches get just as jacked up as the players. And we know Mike's an emotional guy. He gets fired up. We know Odell's an emotional guy. I don't know as much about the other personalities or how they interact on the sideline. But what are your thoughts on controlling emotions and intensity and all those kind of things?
Yeah, it goes down to poise under pressure. But at the same time, you got to kind of be who you are. I was never a big talker kind of guy. I was do your job, knock them in the teeth, get back to huddle. But there's some guys that are, they play better when they're jawing. And at some point you gotta be who you are a little bit, but you got to have that poise to when to pull back, when to but here's the thing, and it's the thing that Mike does that I really like about this team. It's focus on us, right? Our guys focus on us. It's about how we perform. It's about us as a team. It's not about going out there and showing bravado and showing who can talk the most smack. And it's a characteristic of this team that has served it well. Focus on the inside. Don't focus on the outside. And I fully expect FSU to be that way. I fully expect Miami to be the other way. I mean, I watched the end of that North Carolina State game, and when things kind of went out of control, they kind of lost their poise, and I could see them jumping around, and the horse is going to come out and all that stuff, and they're going to be all whatever. And I imagine we'll be a little excited too. But I think when foot meets leather, it's going to be, let's focus on us and do what we need to do. And I fully expect FSU to do that because that's who they are. And that's the mantra they train under. Mike always likes to talk about the work and the training, and you've trained for this. And that's part of it, is that mentality that it's about us. If we do what we train to do, no one can stop us. And they truly believe that. And I fully expect to see that on the field.
Jerry, you've seen a lot of these games. I'm sure you've seen emotion become a negative and a positive, depending on what year it is. What are your thoughts on how both teams handle this, particularly Florida State?
Yeah, I've watched Miami a lot this year, and to Mark's point, they're a little undisciplined. They let their emotion get the best of them at times. Kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago with Florida State. Mike hadn't ingrained it yet, and we didn't know how to manage our emotion. The thing Mike keeps coaching is response. Bad things are going to happen. How do you respond to it? You all saw him chew Span's ass after a bad response in a game last year where he chased him all the way over the water bucket, on his ass. And that's the thing. I mean, you're going to have players throw hands at you during this game. There's going to be a lot of smack talk. There'll be some shoving and pushing after a play. And I don't see this Florida State team mishandling that moment. I think Mike has ingrained in them, walk away and get a piece of their ass on the next play.
Yep.
And that is what I expect of Florida State, with a couple of exceptions. I think Patrick Payton, he's inclined to.
He's emotional.
He's emotional, and he's young, and he's Miami, and he's emotional. And then Hussey's young, and I think he has the potential for getting overly worked up playing against South Florida kids.
As the official agent of Conrad Hussey, I expect you would know best.
Yes, he would. Jerry has moved from the linebacker guru of the staff to the Conrad Hussey guru of the staff.
Well, I started with the Patrick Payton one.
Yeah.
So
listen, you down
I love
Conrad.
my Miami boys.
Yeah, you down Conrad from the get-go. All right, guys, as we get ready to wrap it up, where's one area on the field, off the field, that you think Florida State has a distinct advantage over Miami?
Well, I'm going to go with what I just said. They're how they respond. They can get down in a game and come back. Mike's really done a really good job with coaching response. And this game isn't going to be one response. It could be three responses.
I agree.
And so I like that in Florida State's favor.
Nick?
Yeah, I would have to agree and piggyback off of Jerry there. Apart from maybe if Keon and Johnny are both playing, I think having some smaller receivers may cause some problems for Miami. But overall, I think the biggest advantage is just the maturity of this football team. I mean, there's only maybe one or two very select instances in the past 2 seasons where an FSU player has noticeably lost their cool and played undisciplined, unmature football. So, I mean, I think that maturity is ingrained in this football team. I think Miami's going to come in with a lot riding on this game. I mean, obviously they're bowl eligible, but this is really their season when it comes to being able to play in a really good bowl game down in a couple of weeks. So I think they're going to come with a lot of intensity. They're going to try and be chippy, but once all of that is gone and the emotion is out of it, the most mature football team is probably going to be able to relax, make more plays, and probably run away with the game in the second half. So I think the maturity and the culture that Florida State has is a distinct advantage right now over a Miami team that has had some pretty tough losses recently. And you kind of got to wonder where the emotions are at.
Mark?
Depth. I think the depth of FSU at this moment in time compared to Miami is going to be a big difference. And it's the biggest advantage that we have.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2 things. Off the field, I think they got the better head coach. I think Mike game management is better. He drives me crazy on 4th down, but whatever, that's his deal. We are allowed to do what we want to do. And he does it, and he's going to do it, and he just got to be right more than he is wrong, right, Mark? And then the other thing is the quarterback. Florida State's got a much better quarterback, even when Tyler Van Dyke's playing healthy. He's more dynamic. So I would go with those 2 things, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think it's going to we're fixing to give you our predictions for the game, and this is about as Jerry always goes back and reviews our predictions at the end of every week to see how close we were as a staff. And unfortunately, his work's not going to be as easy this week, particularly because of me and Fish. But I am going to pop up our predictions. And as has been true all season, our predictions were all FSU helmets if this was college game day. But Mark, you got FSU 34-20. Jerry, FSU 31, Miami 17. Me, FSU 27, Miami 25. Nick, FSU 35-21. Bob, 27-17. And Fish, 23-17. Jerry, Nick, and Mark, you will have people that put down money on this game scared to death because you're right on the line. I know it.
Yeah.
You are right on the line.
I'm diverting right back to the line after whiffing horribly last week.
After 10 weeks, I think Vegas probably has everything figured out. They probably know what they're doing at this point. Well, everybody is who they are.
Yeah, well, I was surprised. I was a little bit surprised the line was 14 points. I'm going to be honest.
Is it 14 or 14 and a half?
Whatever. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'll take that 2-point win and be very happy for Florida State and for everyone on this call and for Florida State fans. But yeah, listen, I think it's going to be fun. I know you guys are fired up. We'll have to, Jerry, are you going to be able to control your emotions tomorrow?
Oh, I'm ice cold in a game. As long as I can sit by myself and don't have anybody.
That is true.
My emotion. People drive me crazy watching the game with them.
Yeah, Mark, are you going to sit next to Jerry and drive him crazy tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be pretty close. I'm pretty calm. I'm usually pretty calm.
You are.
But your dad's the one I got to worry about.
Yeah, he is a little emotional. He's been that way for a long, long time. He gets a little fired up.
Oh, I got some stories.
I know that you do. But yes, you are
I sat next to him for 5 years.
You are a vision of composure compared to him.
I sat next to him for 5 years.
Yes. Well, he will be there in the varsity club, and he will. He's sitting about 10 paces from me right now, listening to us do the show. But yes, he's fired up. He did not like all my opinions for this game when we talked about it earlier today. So,
let's get his opinion while he's sitting there. Let's hear what Wally wants.
They want to know if you want to come on the show and talk. He's listening on his phone to us talk. Hey. You want to come on the show and talk? They want to get down. He's turning it down. Jerry has some questions for you. All right, he's coming, Jerry. You can grow. All right, you're going to take my place. Now you got to realize you have hosting responsibility too. If you thought the show
get him on there.
If you thought the show came off the wheels with me hosting, Jerry, here we go. Just put those in.
Who all on here?
Jerry, Mark, and Nick.
Hey, Wally, you don't need those headsets.
I think the sound got muted.
How about now?
Okay,
Yeah.
we're good now.
There you go. They got
Hey,
some
Wally, can you
Hey, guys.
can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right. Say hello to Mark. Can you see Mark sitting here?
Yeah, I don't have my glasses. Yeah, I see you. Up on the right top. Yeah.
What's up, my friend?
There we go.
All right. Yeah, that's better. I had to find my eyes.
So how you doing,
Cool.
Wally?
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. I just don't want my heart broken again tomorrow.
All right.
You think it's going to happen?
I think we're going to take care of it somehow. I think, I kind of overheard you guys talking there, and I agree with most of what you guys said. I think we got the best of most of it is what's going to happen tomorrow. I think, our offense is, I think, going to take care of it. I think we might struggle a little bit at times on defense sometimes. We just, I don't, just as a casual fan, which I am not, but, I think we have a hard time sometimes rushing the passer. And I think we'll, probably have to blitz some to rush the passer and things like that. So, but I feel good, really do.
Yeah, I do too. I think the depth and the experience, I think in the end, I could see us pulling away. I think it's going to be tight for a while. I do.
I do
And
too.
I think towards the end we'll end up pulling away.
Well, I think this. I think Miami's going to probably, just like always, come out and try to intimidate, and we've got to survive that surge early. And our kids can't get caught up in retaliation and things like that. They got to keep one mind, and that's go out there and perform the next play, and things like that, which we all know. But I really think that's the way it's going to start, and I agree. I think we're good enough to run the ball to match their physicality and hopefully wear them down and toward the end of that game be in full control.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are expecting, or at least hoping, that this game is over very quickly. They see a struggling Miami team and they think, oh, Florida State's going to jump on these guys immediately. And I think that it's going to be a highly contested game for for the first half at the very least, and then once everything calms down, that's where Florida State's been so good making second half adjustments, and then that's where once you get over that initial burst of emotion and trying to punch each other in the mouth, cooler heads will prevail, and then the better football team will prevail. Florida State will end up pulling away.
That's
I was talking to someone today, earlier today, and I wonder, the transfer guys, did they really realize the intensity and the rivalry that they're going to get caught up in? I don't care how good or bad either side is in any given year. It's going to be that kind of game, and you've got to be able to survive that and come out on the other end with a win. And
That's a great
wonder
point.
about that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Guys like Jeremiah Byers and Casey Roddick and Braden Fisk and heck, Keon Coleman, right? They hadn't played in this game before.
If I was going to put my money on one of the transfers that it wouldn't matter to, that'd be Fisk. Because he has a dog getting after it, let me tell you. And I love watching that kid play. It doesn't matter. He loves the game of football, and he'll be in there and he'll compete with them as much as anybody will tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Miami's got a bunch of transfers too, so it's kind of balanced. They got 16 transfers that'll play in this game by my count, We have 19. So, and they're top 45. So, yeah, it'll be curious to see how those kids play.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get from Restrepo, but what about some of their younger kids not younger kids, but their transfers? It's a good question.
You know what you're going to get from Restrepo because he gets 13 targets a game, no matter what.
Well,
Hey, Wally, when you got a kid like Restrepo, he's a slot receiver for the most part. And you know that on third down, they're going to go to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he's going to be targeted when it's go-to time. I mean, what do you do as a defensive coordinator? Do you bracket him? Do you chip him, misdirect him? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I think you have to change it up, no doubt, and I'm sure they got some tendencies. Florida State's got some tendencies on him. He kind of reminds me of the kid that used to be at Clemson and now with the Raiders.
Renfro.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably faster. I don't know all those kind of things about him, but they are going to target him a lot. And he comes through for them. Let me tell you, he comes through for them. And they'll be tired of chasing him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, hey, they're going to be chasing two pretty good ones too themselves that we got,
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a fun. Hey, Wally, what was your favorite game coaching against Miami?
The one that broke my heart was wide right. That was my favorite game. For whatever reason, that game just sticks out in my mind. I know there was wide left and there was a 2-point conversion to Pat Carter in the end zone, last play of the game, and so forth and so on. But for whatever, and I don't know why, I couldn't go inside. I could not leave the bench that day. I could not make myself go inside. And it just, that hurt me more than any loss I've ever been through in my life, as far as football.
Now, Mark, watch this. I asked him what was his favorite game.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
nature, the nature of a competitor is to always remember the loss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that strange? I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm the same way. Mine was the 87 game, the Pat Carter 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
That one to me, I'll never forget. I never cried after a game. I cried after that game.
Yeah.
Sat in my locker. I was crying like a baby. I was so upset. I was just, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember Big Cat Pat going up right now over in that right end zone, from the press box, going up, and those big old hands go up there, and that ball being flipped away, right at the end. That's funny how you remember those things. Those are bad things,
You always remember the bad things. Now that we've cleared the air on that, what was your favorite moment?
What was my what?
What was your favorite one? The one you liked the best.
Well, I'd have to say the national championship game. There's a milestone, and I never thought I'd be in that situation. Probably, when I first started my coaching career, and so that had to be my favorite. But I got some Gator games, in '93, in Gainesville, when Mort Dunn and Charlie got together on that little swing pass out there and sent us on our way.
Yeah. Well,
Sure.
that picture that Pat's got behind you is Marvin.
Oh yeah,
laying out the Miami tailback. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I tell you what. Yeah, that's what you call a decleater, isn't it? And that's what when you teach, you gotta run through them.
These days, that's targeting, and he's out of the game.
Oh, he couldn't play.
Nope.
Back then. And you think about things like that. Remember the night against Duke and Doak Campbell.
Yeah.
Those two quarterbacks tried to sprint out and throw the football and didn't finish the game.
Right. He decapitated those guys.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out of the
that's
game
a-
then, too. Get him out of the game.
Yeah, that's a classic though. That picture right behind me, it really is. I love that. I got that on my phone.
Good seeing you, Wally.
That's great seeing you guys. See you tomorrow.
Great
All right.
seeing you.
See you.
So we're gonna, Mark, you want to take us out, or is Pat going to take us out? Pat?
I think Pat's got to take us out. Oh, well, there's that too.
Go Knowles. Help them.
Mark's going to take us out. I just have to
Okay,
hit.
I'm
Pat's
out.
coming back into the pod. So,
Yeah, I just got to hit end recording. All right, hey guys, I appreciate y'all taking the time out. Hope everyone has a fun day tomorrow. Mark, you and I will be talking after the game at some point for first impressions. We'll get all that worked out since you were at the game with us. It'll be a little bit more difficult than when you're sitting at Nashville waiting on me to pop on the screen. But anyway, Jerry, thanks. Nick, thanks. I will see you guys tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Go Knowles. Scalp
all right,
them.
man.
Run through a wall. Let's do it.